Mark Stevens, a 32-year-old flight attendant, moved briskly down the aisle of the Boeing 737 as the flight from Boston to Los Angeles began its routine journey. With over a decade of experience in the skies, Mark had earned a reputation for his quick thinking and compassionate demeanor. Whether it was calming a crying toddler or handling the quirks of a seasoned traveler, he approached each challenge with a mix of professionalism and empathy. The passengers settled into their seats, some excited for a new adventure, others weary from the day's travels. For Mark, this was just another flight, or so it seemed. As he assisted a passenger with an oversized carry-on, his sharp eyes caught a peculiar scene in row 17. A teenage girl, later identified as Lily Chen, sat stiffly by the window, her dark hair shielding her face. Beside her was an older man, Michael Harris, who exuded an air of control. His hand rested firmly on Lily's arm, his posture unyielding. To most, it might have seemed like a typical uncle-niece duo traveling together, but to Mark, something felt off. The tension in the girl's posture and her darting eyes told a different story, one of fear and unease. Mark had encountered countless passengers in his career, but this interaction set off an alarm in his mind. It would soon become clear that this was no ordinary flight, and his instincts were about to be put to the ultimate test. As the flight continued, Mark Stevens began his usual rounds, ensuring passengers were comfortable. When he reached row 17 to offer drinks, his eyes were drawn again to Lily Chen and Michael Harris. The unease he had felt earlier deepened as he observed their interaction more closely. The group got themselves separated and established their own rooms. As Lily was taken to her room, she found Michael Harris asleep on the bed. Lily sat rigidly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her dark eyes darted nervously around the cabin, avoiding prolonged eye contact with anyone. She barely spoke, her lips pressed into a thin line. Beside her, Michael leaned back in his seat with an air of authority, his sunglasses still perched on his face, despite the dim interior of the plane. His hand rested possessively on Lily's arm, gripping just a little too tightly. When Mark asked if they wanted something to drink, Michael responded curtly, "Water for me." Then, without consulting Lily, he added, "And a soda for her." Mark handed the drinks over, and as Lily reached out to take hers, something remarkable happened. Her hand trembled slightly, and then she made a subtle gesture, curling her thumb into her palm and closing her fingers around it. A chill shot through Mark. He recognized the gesture immediately. It was the universal hand signal for help, a silent cry often used by victims of trafficking or abuse. Mark's heart raced as he processed what he had just witnessed. Keeping his expression neutral, Mark asked quietly, "Is everything okay?" Lily gave the faintest nod, her lips quivering. It was all the confirmation Mark needed to know something was very wrong. Determined to act, he decided to alert his team without raising suspicion. As the flight reached cruising altitude, Mark Stevens pushed the beverage cart through the aisle, greeting passengers with his practiced smile. When he reached row 17, he maintained his calm demeanor, but his attention was fully focused on Lily Chen and Michael Harris. Michael's controlling behavior was becoming more apparent. His body language was domineering, and his grip on Lily's arm didn't loosen, even as she tried to shift slightly in her seat. When Mark offered drinks, Michael spoke on her behalf, dismissing her completely. "Water for me," Michael said without looking up. He paused for a moment, then added, "And a soda for her." Mark handed Lily the soda, and as her hand brushed his, she hesitated. Mark felt his stomach drop. He recognized the signal instantly. It was the universal gesture for help taught during recent training on recognizing victims of trafficking or abuse. His pulse quickened, but he kept his face neutral. "Is everything okay?" he asked softly, his voice low enough that only Lily could hear. Lily gave the slightest nod, her lips trembling as if holding back tears. Her eyes pleaded silently for help. Mark knew he couldn't delay. Misinterpreting the situation wasn't an option, but neither was ignoring a clear cry for help. Determined to take action, he forced a calm smile and said to Michael, "I will be right back with some snacks for both of you." As he moved down the aisle, Mark's mind raced. Lily's signal had been clear, and now it was up to him to ensure her safety. Mark Stevens wasted no time once he was out of Michael Harris's view. In the rear galley, he quickly pulled aside his colleague, Sarah Lopez, a trusted team member known for her sharp instincts. "We have a situation," Mark whispered urgently. "Row 17, the girl, Lily. She gave me the trafficking signal." Sarah's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "Positive," Mark replied. "Her body language, the man's behavior, it all lines up. We need to act, but carefully. He can't suspect a thing." The two devised a discreet plan. Mark would alert the captain and notify ground control, ensuring law enforcement would be ready upon landing. Meanwhile, Sarah would keep an eye on Lily and Michael, watching for any further escalation. Mark slipped into the bathroom and sent a coded emergency message to the cockpit. Captain Laura Bennett responded within minutes, confirming that authorities would meet them at the gate in Los Angeles. "Stay calm and don't let him catch on," she advised over the intercom. Returning to the galley, Mark spotted another potential ally, a passenger seated across the aisle from Lily Rebecca Turner. A middle school teacher had been subtly observing the pair since takeoff. When Mark passed her seat, she murmured, "Something's wrong, isn't it?" Mark nodded briefly. "Be ready. I might need your help." Rebecca gave a firm nod, her expression resolute. Back in the galley, Mark and Sarah finalized their plan. Sarah would create a diversion, allowing Mark to separate Michael from Lily under the guise of a seat reassignment. With the captain on standby to divert the flight if necessary, the team knew the stakes were high, but Mark was determined to ensure Lily's safety, no matter what it took. The cabin felt tense as Mark Stevens prepared to execute the plan. With Sarah Lopez at his side, he moved deliberately, ensuring every step seemed routine. Meanwhile, Rebecca Turner, the teacher seated across from Lily, waited for her cue. Sarah's voice came calmly over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing slight turbulence. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." This was the signal for Rebecca to act. Rebecca stood and accidentally dropped her carry-on bag directly in front of Michael Harris's seat. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," she said, fumbling deliberately. Michael scowled, momentarily distracted. It was all Mark needed. He approached swiftly, his tone firm but polite. "Sir, there's been a seating issue, and we need you to move to first class immediately." Michael looked up, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "What? Why?" "It's for safety purposes," Mark replied evenly, masking his rising pulse. "We need to ensure proper weight distribution." Michael hesitated but eventually stood, muttering under his breath. As Sarah and another crew member escorted him toward first class, Mark turned his attention to Lily. "You're safe now," he whispered gently. "Come with me." Lily's eyes filled with tears as she stood, trembling. Mark guided her to the rear galley, where Sarah wrapped her in a blanket and reassured her. "You're okay now," Sarah said softly. As the plane descended into Las Vegas, police vehicles with flashing lights were already visible on the tarmac. The moment the aircraft landed, law enforcement officers boarded and swiftly took Michael into custody. Lily, supported by counselors and officers, was led safely off the plane. The passengers, still murmuring with curiosity, watched as a young girl's life was changed forever, thanks to Mark's courage and quick thinking. In the days following the dramatic events aboard the flight, news of the rescue made headlines nationwide. Mark Stevens's quick thinking and decisive action highlighted the growing importance of vigilance in combating human trafficking. The airline released a statement commending the crew's efforts, emphasizing the critical role of training and awareness in identifying and addressing such situations. For Mark, the experience was life-changing. While he had always taken pride in his role as a flight attendant, this incident revealed a new purpose. Determined to make a lasting difference, he partnered with anti-trafficking organizations to develop specialized training programs for airline staff. These workshops focused on recognizing subtle signs of distress, understanding trafficking dynamics, and responding effectively without escalating danger. Sarah Lopez and Rebecca Turner joined the cause, sharing their first-hand experience to inspire others to remain alert and take action when something seems off. Their efforts sparked a movement within the airline industry, with carriers across the country implementing similar training programs. As for Lily, she found safety and healing with the support of her family and dedicated counselors. Inspired by the bravery of those who helped her, she began speaking out about her experience. Her voice became a powerful tool in raising awareness about human trafficking and empowering other survivors to seek help. Together, their actions created a ripple effect, saving countless lives and fostering a culture of awareness and compassion. Mark, now a respected advocate, reflected on the moment that changed everything. "Every seat holds a story," he often said, and sometimes the smallest actions can rewrite that story in the most profound way. The rescue wasn't just about saving one life, it was about igniting a movement that ensured many more would never have to endure the same ordeal.